You know, we are doing presidents and black civil rights, and our next guest is Franklin Delano Roosevelt, FDR, the 32nd President of the United States. If you've been with me for a minute, this one really should be easy, right? We could just look at his New Deal programs, which benefited white people, but certainly not black or brown people or Asian people. But let's see what we can find out, because when you look him up, you will see that black people love him. He is viewed as a hero by many black people, Catholics, and Jewish people, and he was highly successful in attracting large majorities of these voters into his New Deal coalition. But when you take a closer look and look underneath the hood, you realize that it's all been whitewashed. You need to take a look at the finer print. Like if you look at maybe the Mexican repatriation, which was started under Herbert Hoover, right? It was the deportation or expelling of 300,000 to 2 million Mexican and Mexican Americans to Mexico. Literally 40 to 60% were U.S. citizens. Yeah. FDR ended the federal involvement in the practice, but he did nothing about the state and local involvement, which was violating things like the Fourth Amendment and the Due Process Clause of the Fifth and 14th Amendment. He didn't stop it. So, silly little things like that. Let's talk about FDR. Before I forget, he didn't appoint or nominate a single black person to his cabinet. So, oops. Hoover nominated record numbers, but Roosevelt nominated nobody. Even Wilson nominated somebody, and he was a blatant racist. But not Roosevelt. But I digress. In 1941, Roosevelt established the Fair Employment Practices Committee to implement Executive Order 8802, which prohibited racial and religious discrimination in employment among defense contractors. The FEPC was the first national program dedicated amongst employment discrimination, and it played a major role in opening up new employment opportunities to non-white workers. During World War II, the proportion of black men employed in manufacturing positions rose significantly. In response to Roosevelt's policies, black people increasingly defected from the Republican Party during the 1930s and 40s, becoming an important Democratic voting bloc in several northern states. So now they're moving over in droves and not just a trickle. Now, it's about this time that lynching will rear its ugly head again. It came in waves. Yeah. And as a reminder, I do have my lecture series, Lynching in America, every Sunday, noon Central Standard Time. Okay. Lynching was impacting the black community as white Southerners and a few white Northerners were unaliving blacks with impunity. FDR tried to convince the black community and his wife that, yes, he was horrified by the brutality. But his hands were tied politically, because he was kowtowing to the South. Yeah. In 1935, the Costigan-Wagner bill was drafted. The legislation proposed federal prosecution of participants in lynch mobs, including public officials and law enforcement officers who failed to protect the victims in their custody. They tended to step aside when the lynch mob came to get the black person, or hand over the keys, whichever worked. Senators Robert F. Wagner of New York and Edward P. Costigan of Colorado tried to persuade FDR to support the Costigan-Wagner bill. Roosevelt was concerned about a provision of the bill that called for the punishment of sheriffs who failed to protect their prisoners from lynch mobs. Again, they tended to look away when a lynch mob came to get the black person. FDR believed that he would lose the support of the white voters in the South by approving the bill and lose the 1936 presidential election. When Eleanor arranged a meeting with Wagner, Costigan, and FDR to try to convince her husband to endorse the bill, the meeting didn't go well. FDR says, "If I come out for the anti-lynching bill now, Southern Democrats will block every bill I ask Congress to pass to keep America from collapsing." It's the Great Depression, after all. "I can't just take the risk." Remember, he's trying to get the New Deal programs passed, okay? So what if a few black people were unalived? It's the Great Depression, and he's trying to pass the New Deal.